Duty Paid, and today is the latest typewriter I have. This is a Oliver number 5. Now I say this is the latest I have. We're now in November and I got this in January, but the way the year's been going, it's been pretty crazy, and I was going to fix this one up pretty soon after I got it, but yeah, best laid plans, and it's actually been sitting in the back of my car for practically the whole year. I thought I'd better bring it up and keep it safe now and finally get cracking on it. Now this is the number 5 and it came with a large metal cover, which I can't actually physically get the cover underneath where I'm filming at the moment, but it's a large metal cover, and originally it would come on a sort of wooden, kind of almost like a chopping board, but the typewriter sat on that and the cover went down and there was little pegs that went under. And this machine is 13 kilos and the cover is 2 kilos, so 15 kilos plus whatever the wood weigh. Absolute nightmare for a portable typewriter. Now this is all solid cast iron. I got this off eBay, and basically I have a number 9 which I'm restoring, and it's got broken parts on, so I was looking for a real scrap spares or repair number 9 to lend parts to my other one. Now I would hate to find even one in this condition and just pull it apart, because these machines not particularly rare, but I would hate to see a sort of fully complete machine, even though in a poor state, just being broken for parts. I got this on eBay. It was bid for £5, and I was looking for a number 9 and saw this, and I thought, let's throw in £5 bid and let's see what happens. And before I knew it, I had won the auction, no other bids. So it was a collection only, and it was a little place outside Oxford, which the name completely eludes me now, but jumped in the car one Sunday morning, went down, never met the guy who's selling it. He literally said, I'll leave it in my porch and stick the money underneath the doormat and help yourself. I think he went to church. Elderly gentleman, and so I went down, picked it up and left the money for him and came home with it. Now he did tell me that it was his father's. Not what age he got it from, but the guy sounded elderly on the phone. Well, can't make the assumptions, but he sort of did. He was saying he was having to clear out because of his time in life, so that leads me to that. And basically his father used it for a number of years. It got put in the loft and then forgot about for let the decades pass on, you could say. Now Oliver number 5s were manufactured in America, in Chicago, and date between 1907 and 1914, and that's to the 5 to 6 model. So that is 7 years, so 3.5 years, 4, 5 before it changed over to the sort of 6 model. So this can date anywhere between 07 and 14, so it's 101 years old to 108 years old, basically. No, even longer than that. 116 years. No, 101 years to 108 years old. So, pretty old. 108 years old typewriter. Now, this is what's called a 3-row machine. And then basically, instead of a 4th row, which you have the numbers and characters on, you have very dirty. Now, I haven't touched this since I got it. I took off the old ribbon that was all wrapped around the keys. You tend to find old typewriters and they always, like, the ribbons jumped out and like just gone everywhere, which is always very strange. But you got a 3-row machine, and basically you got a caps key, which is a bit like a shift on a normal sort of typewriter, or then you got a figure key, and basically it's a QWERTY lock set out, but the Q has got the 1 above it and 2, 3, etc. and then the sort of special characters, for instance like pound sign, is above the S on this one. So it lends if you're used to typing on a 4-row machine, then this is familiar in the sense, you know, you've got 3 rows of main characters, but without the 4th row. You know, how often do you use numbers or sort of more special characters, for instance, things like commas or over the M, so you have to figure and then hit the comma or full stop. But caps is a separate key altogether, so you have to, and there's a little lock for said one that should work, but this machine is very toasty basically. I've only gone through this machine very lightly. I got it up from the car even the other day and just left it. Luckily it came in a big plastic bag. I think any spiders are probably long since dead, but saying that, I'm just having a look underneath it and there's some strange items under there. It probably sat without its cover on for a long time, which is a shame. The cover was probably used to carry other things. That's a bit dented up. But originally a dark green machine. Oh, excuse me. And with sort of gold print on. And the top paper table says the Oliver Typewriter with their logo, which is of a Oliver Typewriter. Under here it says the Oliver Standard Visible Writer number 5, and at the front, which is I don't know if that camera picks it up, but it's basically it's ghost. It's like someone put it over and then tried to apply another one, or it may have been over and slipped, but it says basically the Oliver Typewriter Company, Chicago, USA, keep machine cleaned and oiled. But a bit different than the, I should stop touching it before I get the vacuum on. I thought you might like to see the, what I call a loft find. Now, barns in this country, you wouldn't want to find anything in the barn. They've probably all been converted into sort of a nice house, or UK barns are different than US barns. You probably find quite nice items in US barns, but UK barns, we don't have the space like you see on American pickers. So items would be completely trashed right now, and our weather is not as kind to such items. It's sort of wet. Well, it's not wet all the time. That's a stereotypical view of London, or England, and it's currently raining today, and did yesterday and the day before. But we do have some nice summers, not particularly dry all the time. Now this is quite interesting. Shame the other one's missing. This is a little spool cover. The camera picks it up. Now you can see the basically service rust and so forth. But if you turn that over, the paint kind of looks like the day it was made. I'm getting that in camera. So it was a dark green colour. Now the UK bought basically Oliver, and that was 1928, and started manufacturing, which was the 11. So anything before 11 was US made. Now some machines in 1928 were old American stock, which were basically rebranded, but this literally, I don't think this one was a rebrand, no, because both say it was made in Chicago, so this was literally an import machine. So from about 1907 to 1914, around about 311,000 of these were made, which how many are still about is sort of a guess really. There's no real census on old typewriters. Now this is toasty. It's probably hasn't. I'm probably the first person to use this, or try to use it in, oh god, 90 years maybe, 80 years. I'm not sure if it needs help advancing, which I could be a broken spring, or it could just be because it's rusted up. That would be, if it is a broken spring, it's unfortunate. You can kind of repair them, but how it is, it's literally a drum round spring. If it's gone from its support, what you can do is literally remove it, take the spring, and then bend it again and drop it in, and that will, it shortens the spring slightly, but you don't notice any degradation. If it's broken, which is rare, but on one of the wines, then it's game over unless you can find a sort of old clock sort of master spring to drop in there. Cross fingers, it's simple, but it's nice to find one of these actually untouched, because sometimes people will clean it up for sort of auction, and you don't want that. You don't want to be buying things that are clean. Obviously, if you buy a car, you want the person will wash it beforehand, but it's part of it, cleaning and maintaining it. Now obviously, if you want to use it, you want to probably get one to whatever finish you want. You know, like this, it's not usable. You know, the paper feed is semi-jammed because the mechanism on the left, the free return or free advance is jammed. Everything is pretty rusty and crusty. The back works, but that's a mechanical hook basically. Going through, you got the keyboard, you got these lovely quite unusual hex keys. I think they're hex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 hexagon? Or is that 7? Octagon. Octagon, must be octagon, because like 8. Octopus, which has 8 legs, so sides, which is an octagon. So I turn it round onto the side, you can see the carriage. Now, all this would have been painted and steel, no real bare steel parts. All this would have been nickel coated, and you can see the nickel is literally flaking off. This is what a sort of 100-year-old parts do. It's got its bell with a little fish on it. Probably 100-year-old spiders. Bodies have stopped the ring, but it probably hasn't rung in a while. Seems to have a kind of what's that? Sort of foam stuck to it, which is probably just where it was sitting. Metal lasts a lot better than other materials. So swinging around the back, you basically have, this is the tension wheel. Actually, that's still got, whoops. Right live at me. But at least we know two things now. We know the tension wheel actually works, the spring actually works, and it's got its hook, which is carriage hook. These can fall off because the string breaks, and that will just, what happens is it breaks at the knot, which is the weakest part, and then what happens is the machine gets moved and that falls off, which is probably good, best not leaving it under tension. But no, we now know the spring works, even though I've gained a few years of my life after that slipped, but that's fine. And that will hook back on the carriage. Quite unique on these, the carriage is fully removable without any problems. Practically all other typewriters, anything from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, almost without exception, you don't want to be taking the carriage off. And that will cause nothing but problems. There's these little carriage bearings, which are either metal or even plastic, with little sort of spur wheels, and you've got to get them straight, and you've got to line them up backwards and put them on, and even then it's a nightmare. Don't go anywhere near carriage removal. You know, clean around it best you can, slide it all the way over, move the margins, don't be moving carriages unless you've got Oliver, and then it's a simple case of pulling down the margin and sliding the whole carriage over, which is still pretty tricky when the machine's toasty. But you can take the carriage off, and then there's a little bit, because they knew the string would basically break quite often, and this is 100-year-old string, well, probably, so that is fine. We can put new string in and then wind up the I think it's about, I normally do these about 3 or 4 turns. So if you sort of make a mark, or think of a sort of mark, and then turn it, and basically you want to be turning anti-clockwise so it can pull clockwise and pull the carriage over, and then obviously once it's over and advances, it's self-winding. But that is good to know, the spring. This back part and hump is basically the carrier. It allows the carriage to come forward and back to different positions, which allows the hammers, which are the over type, quite unique over type, which have the 3 markings on. So if you carefully look, just on one you can see one I can read, which is back to front. So basically it says K, lowercase k, and asterisks. So there's probably actually less number of hammers on these. Moving the machine around, you can see it's quite a complicated mechanism. All still works pretty smoothly, except for it's a bit gummed up. This should allow it should advance, but it should slip. So something's going on there. Main problem with these is this mechanism. Now if this mechanism doesn't move freely, it should return automatically. If it doesn't move freely, it gums up the whole machine. Now any typewriter you find in the shop, if you want to give it a quick test, if you have no paper on you, and shame on you, because if you're looking for a typewriter, always carry a piece of paper, but only hit the space bar. And as you can see, this machine, that works, but it doesn't advance. So if you ever see a machine and it doesn't advance, then you want to just sort of check out what problem is with it. If it has, you can then see if it's got any tension. Now we know we just disconnected the tension wheel and pulling it over, but if you find a machine and it doesn't do anything, then make sure it hasn't got carriage lock on, and then if you can get a piece of paper, put it in, and even on an old ribbon you can still get a bit of life left in it. So number 5s varied slightly than number 9s in the operation, but that should be the carriage release, which is very toasty. No, don't have to have a bit of play in it. Don't have to get the best thing to do is WD-40 on parts which are rusty, and that will free them. But then you want to wipe off the WD-40 and add a very thin machine oil by literally cotton bud. You don't want to be overdoing oil. And after 100 years, basically oil gets very toasty, very crusty. Turning this machine up on end, we can see, that's the first time I've managed to check on this. Now, unless it's gone really dark for the camera and my arm's in the way. But fairly simple machine underneath, a lot more simple than the number 9s. The number 9's a lot more levers and so forth. But all this is, I believe some of this is actually aluminium. Just in by the... Welcome back. Sorry for that, my camera cuts out after 20 minutes. Don't ask me why. All I was going to say is basically thank you for watching. Any comments, stick them in the comments. Or any questions even, stick them in the comments would be better. I'll try to answer you best I can. And until next time, I'm the Duty Paid, and this has been a rather crusty Oliver number 5. Hopefully not much longer. It will be cleaned up and not looking like new, but it should be usable.